Hello, everyone. So, one of the things that I really enjoy actually outside of medicine that my friends and colleagues know is that I'm really, really into cars and everything like that. I even remember at one of my hospital orientations, we'd sit in a room, everything like that, with everybody, and they were asking, like, okay, so what career or what would be something that you would do if you actually weren't in medicine or weren't a physician or anything like that? And I actually responded that I would love to be a race car driver, probably not NASCAR, but something like Indy like 500, that type of racing and all of that. But the point is, recently, this past summer, I had an opportunity to do some car racing, and that was really fun. But one of the things I'm like, oh, I'm a great driver and all of that stuff. So I'm like, this is gonna be a walk in the park and everything. But I actually got behind the wheel of the car. You had your race car, what was it, the coach, whatever, telling you how to do things, how to like accelerate into the turns, and when you need to brake, and how to come out of the turns and everything like that. And I thought, okay, I'm pretty aggressive driver. This is gonna be easy. And my coach was like, actually, you need to go faster. You need to go faster. And I was like kind of shocking that like, oh, you're supposed to actually hit this turn at this high rate of speed and all of that. But it was exhilarating, and it was just actually made my lap times a lot faster taking the instruction of this coach who was a professional race car driver on how to go about everything. And it really like got me to see like, oh wow, there's just little improvements that you can do behind a wheel that's going to allow you to go faster and also even be safer too. They were even saying like how you should adjust your seat in the vehicle and where your knees should be positioned at what type of angle that's going to allow you to get the most push when you're using your pedals, either accelerator or the brakes. So even little things like that matter when you're racing at that high rate of speed. Those little things do make all the difference. And why am I telling you this about me racing cars, all of that, improvements, having a coach and everything like that? It's because we're at a time period where you, as a pre-med student, you're getting ready to think about applying to medical school. But one of the biggest things standing between you and having successful application to medical school is actually the MCAT. Yep, the medical college admission test. That exam that you probably known about the first day that you declare that you're pre-med is something that you have to master. And one of my mentors, when I was an undergrad student at Northwestern, he said the MCAT's a test you want to take once and only once. So you need to make sure you're in a position to do well on that exam. And right now, as we're approaching, what is it, winter break or so, now is the time to really get yourself ready in preparation for the MCAT, because realistically, to do well on the MCAT, you really want to give yourselves 3 to 6 months of prep time for the MCAT, depending on what caliber of a student you are and how good you are at standardized tests, and just what your history has been in regards to how well you've been doing academically in your pre-med classes. And this past week, I was working with a student, and they're getting ready to unfortunately have to retake the MCAT. So you want to really be in a position where you're not retaking it, but for them, it is what it is at this point. They're retaking the MCAT. They want to do that in January, so because they already have past experience with it. I was just going over some things with them and prep them for that, because I wanted like to coach them. Like I was for driving, I had those coaches really gave me these little pointers and tidbits that helped me improve my driving racing time. I want to do the same for you guys getting ready for the MCAT. So one of the biggest things I tell students what you need to do before you start your MCAT prep work is that you need to take like a diagnostic, a practice MCAT, just to, for one, to know where you stand with the material, like what is your actual level of knowledge and comprehension of everything that you need to know for the MCAT. And then secondly, also to see how the test is actually written, what's actually on it. And and students always tell me, they're like, yeah, I took the MCAT and it was unlike anything I've seen before. And I say, yep, that's exactly the case. Your pre-med classes, it's more about you're going to get a good grade if you do the work. And what's doing the work? Coming to class, doing a assigned reading, doing associated problems, and doing well on a test. Because that's how your professor tests you. Most of your pre-med classes, it's going to be more a case of memorization and doing the work, and you're going to get a good grade for that. However, the MCAT's entirely different beast. They're not asking like, "Oh, did you do the work? Did you do well in your pre-med classes?" That's not what it's about. They want to know, do you have the knowledge? Do you have the critical thinking ability that we can trust you down the road to eventually be a physician and take care of patients? So that's what the MCAT's assessing. It's not assessing whether you have to memorize things. Obviously, there's some things that you just have to memorize. That's going to be all throughout your career, academia, practicing medicine, but a lot of it comes down to more critical thinking and what I like to call, can you think like a doctor? Because you're gonna have patients, they're gonna come in, they're gonna present in a certain way, and you just kind of need to know what it is. And then also sometimes you're gonna have patients that are gonna present and they're not gonna fit the classic textbook description. And you have to come through your differentials and really say, okay, based on this, based on my labs, based on interviewing history, an exam of the patient, this is what I think is most likely the patient has, and then you're going to work them up for that. So that's what you got to do. That's what you're going to be most of your time, most of your career as a physician. That's what you're going to do. And so the MCAT wants to make sure you have that ability because it's not just rote memorization. And so I want you to, while it's winter break and you have that time away, now's a really good time to start planning out how the next 3 to 6 months are going to go for you. And a lot of people are like, well, I know if I take a practice or diagnostic to MCAT right now, I'm going to just have a really bad score. So what's the point in doing that? Yeah, you probably aren't going to score where you need to be, or you might be a little bit demoralized, but the one or two things are going to happen. You're going to realize, okay, I know more than I thought I knew, or you're gonna be like, okay, I really need to start buckling down and give this MCAT attention that it deserves and really have a serious study plan in place for how I'm gonna actually excel on this test so that I can follow in the words of that mentor that I had who was actually an MD, PhD, and on admissions committee at the University of Chicago, Pritzker School of Medicine, again, who said, MCAT, you want to take once and only once. So I want to make sure you guys are in a position to do that. And a lot of times, students think they have the time, and time becomes an issue where you realize, oh, I actually needed more time to study with my course load, some of the extracurriculars that I'm doing, but maybe not right now with COVID-19, not too many extracurriculars out there, but you're still doing other things and activities to make yourself a well-rounded applicant for medical school. So, but again, I just really want to harp and focus is taking the time now to get a diagnostic MCAT out the way, seeing where you score on that diagnostic, and then doing everything to make sure that you're improving on your MCAT. Because I've a lot of times students will come to me and say they've been studying for weeks, maybe even months, and they haven't seen a lot of progress in their score where it's stagnant. It's not it's not improving, and they just don't know what to do, and they're really feeling dejected and sad and like, okay, no matter what I do, it seems like the harder I study, I actually do worse, and like what's the point? Or maybe I'm not meant to be a physician. I'm not going to be able to get into medical school because I'm not getting the MCAT score that I need to be a competitive applicant for medical school. And so that really comes down to like maybe not so much a test taking strategies that you need to improve upon. It's probably your study skills and how you're actually approaching the material, because a lot of times students, you lull yourself into a false sense of security. And people, this is just human nature. You're going to focus on the things that feel good, the things that, oh, if I study this, I know I'm going to do well on it. I'm going to get a score, and then you're going to feel good about yourself. However, what you need to do when you're studying is you need to work on your weakest subject areas first and put the most time into that, because that's where you have the most room for improvement. So, why would you want to go ahead and study, let's say, biology, because you know it, that's pretty easy for you, and maybe there's only 20% of 20% of the material that you can improve upon because you're already basically at 80% of knowledge base on biology. However, you're avoiding your physics, your ropes, pulleys, and ramps because you don't like it and you don't do well on it. So you don't want to go through studying that material and seeing bad test scores where you only know about 30 or 40% of the material. However, if you think about that, you have a lot more room for improvement. If you're only at 30, 40%, that means you can go up between 60 to 70% of your knowledge base just in that one topic area. And imagine doing that on the actual MCAT. What type of score improvement or boost would you see if you really started taking command and control of your weaker subject areas and made them just as strong as the ones that you're already confident and knowledgeable in? Because the name of the game is your cumulative MCAT score, and so you don't want to be deficient in any areas. And you kind of need to fight your human nature that's going to tell you, no, I don't want to do this because it's hard, it's difficult. I didn't learn it originally in class. So what makes me think that I'm going to learn it now on my own or using whatever resources are available to students because I struggled before? But you got to remember, every time you see the material, it's another attempt at it, and it's going to come back a little bit easier for you to learn it and master it. And if you never mastered it in the first place, you're really going to need those 3 to 6 months time period to really buckle down and learn a material. Because another thing I tell students, there's a time where you want to study to mimic the MCAT, and that's really let's go back to the driving analogy, racing. That's when the race is coming up and you need to get across that, what is it, that checkered line, that checkered flag that's going to put you in the winner's circle. And there's other times when you're just kind of tuning the car. You did some work there. You got to see how the engine's going to work, the transmission, acceleration, all of that stuff, and you're just kind of getting a feel for how the car drives and handles. And that's how your studying is going to be. So if you're not strong in your mastery of the material, then you don't even need to study like you're in test taking mode or MCAT studying mode. You're basically, okay, I need to sit here at this desk and I need to learn this material. I'm not going to be too concerned about actually taking the test and like doing practice problems under time condition. It's going to be more of doing studying, learning, and then doing problems to assess my knowledge. How much did I actually learn and what didn't I learn? And then going back and fixing the things that you didn't learn and just working your way up so you have strong knowledge of the material. And then once it gets closer to your actual test date, then you start doing things to mimic the exam. You're going to do like full length practice MCATs, get yourself acclimated to a full testing day. You're going to even like sleep patterns. You're going to even take the test at the same time that you're actually going to sit for the MCAT. So if you have a morning MCAT session, you should be taking all your practice tests in the morning. And if you have an afternoon session, you should be taking all your practice tests in the afternoon to get ready for that. But if you're in that time period where you're just learning, tuning up, just going to see how the car handles, everything like that, you can just take it whatever is more convenient for your schedule. But once you get into that period where like the test date is coming up and you just need to buckle down and do what you need to do. And before I leave you guys, I want to share one thing that pre-med students need to stop doing and changing, and that is feeling that you have this clock ticking down and says, if I don't take the MCAT by this test date, then it's over. I'm not going to get into medical school. I'm not going to be a doctor. You don't want to just take the MCAT to say you took it and not do well on it. You want to take and sit for the MCAT where you're most prepared to do well and excel on that exam. So that's what you want to keep in mind, because too many students are like, oh, my whatever professor, pre-health advisor said I need to take the MCAT by this test date, and I'm not ready for it, but I'm going to just go ahead and do it. Don't do that to yourself. It's better to come in a little bit later and have a top competitive score than to come in early with a bad score, because that's not going to help you out. Because one of the things that students don't realize is, like, some medical schools, they get over 12,000 applications, and so no human's going to possibly go and screen all of those applications. So that what the schools are going to do is they're going to use computers, and they're going to put in cutoff levels where if you don't even score at a certain level, in most cases they're not even going to look at your application. It's going to get rejected. So that, obviously, everything that you've done is not gonna, you're not gonna, no one's gonna see it. It's not gonna help you get into medical school. And so those scores are really the way for them to make apples to apples, oranges to oranges comparisons between students who come from different schools. You have your private schools, you have your public schools, you have like kind of your Ivy League, other caliber tier, different schools and all of that. But the MCAT, to a degree and to an extent, really does level the playing field for everyone. So you really need to take it seriously and do what you can. So just really study, buckle down, use this time now to really start figuring out what your plan of action is going to be and what are the things that are going to hold you back from performing well the MCAT, and start mitigating them now. Get them out the way. Start figuring out what resources you're going to use for the MCAT, when you're going to sit for the test. Take your diagnostics to see where you're at, and then kind of give yourself that wake up call. Okay, I'm doing better than what I thought, or I'm doing worse than what I thought, but here's what my plan of attack is going to be based on the information I have, because you want to be prepared for the MCAT and doing well on it. And even, I just heard this in the news somewhere. I didn't look up the data specifically, but I heard somewhere there's about like an 18% increase in applications to medical school due to COVID. I think they even said because of Dr. Fauci and the news and everything like that, people are just having more appreciation and even awareness of healthcare providers across all segments: physicians, physician assistants, nurses, everybody, your therapist, your techs, everybody. So that you're just seeing a more increase in that. So that, what does that mean for you guys as applying to medical school as a pre-med? The competition's even tougher now because you have even more people fighting for a spot in medical school. So you really need to make sure that your MCAT's where it needs to be and that your overall application is where it needs to be. And if you guys don't know this, Dr. Spears on my website, drpremed.com. And one of the things I have is I have my MCAT Master Companion course where I work with students and I show you guys exactly what you need to be competitive and how to excel on the MCAT. I give you study strategies and test taking skills, because a lot of times students, they'll say, I'm enrolled in these commercial MCAT prep courses, but my score isn't improving. And I think those courses are good for some students. And if you're the type like, okay, you just need the knowledge and like the raw material, that's great for that. But a lot of times students, they don't know how to think like a doctor. And that's where I come in with my MCAT Mastery Companion course. So if you're one of those students, like, you're studying, you're learning this material, but then when you try to apply it to the practice test and your scores aren't where they need to be, then I'm someone that you can look into for help in that regard, because that's kind of what I specialize in, helping students really just become very strategic and really get to the root of what the MCAT's actually testing and asking of students, so that you can excel and you can have success on the first time that you take the MCAT, because you don't want to be a repeat MCAT test taker. And a lot of times students will tell me, Dr. Spears, previously took the MCAT. I was enrolled in this commercial course. I sat for it, and it feels like everything I studied was not on that exam. And the questions and the way they asked things was just something that, even if I had all the time in the world, I would never have expected. There were so many charts, graphs, experiments, and I just had to interpret all of this data and things that I've never even seen or come across. And that's really where I need help with you to master that, so that when I sit for the MCAT again, I'm prepared because I already know what to expect, but I just don't know how to train my mind to think in a different way of what the MCAT's asking. I'm like, yep, that's exactly the case, because all of your pre-med classes, it's again, like I said, it's memorization. How much did you memorize? Okay, you memorized, you did the work. Okay, now you're going to pass the test and do well. But the MCAT's entirely different beast. It's not about memorization, because anybody can memorize. We want to know, can you think on your feet? Can you interpret data? Can you think critically? Because those are the things you're going to have to do as a doctor. And so if you struggle with that, or it's just something that you never come across and you really need help to do well in the MCAT, then I strongly encourage and recommend that you take a look at my MCAT Mastery Companion course, because that's going to set you up for success, and it's going to limit your amount of frustration. You're going to get through the MCAT material a lot faster, a lot quicker, and really do things that's going to help you so that you can study less, learn more, and score higher. Again, this is Dr. Spears with drpremed.com. Make sure you check out the website. A lot of great stuff out there, and I want you guys to just excel and do well, as you guys are a pre-med student at a really great time in your life where you're getting ready for that MCAT and you do well on it. All the doors open up for you in regards to getting into the medical school and being that physician that you want to be.